but I moved here when I was really young, so.
Okay.
Yeah.
Could you tell us a little bit about your culture? Like what languages you speak at home?
Yeah. So Moroccan culture. Morocco is like in North Africa, so a lot of our influences from the Middle East and Europe. So I mainly speak English and Arabic at home, and then my parents speak French as well. Yep, and as well as so my dad is from like a region in like the sub-Saharan part of Morocco, so he speaks another language that's more focused from there. So yeah.
Okay. What religion are you and your family?
So my entire family is Muslim. So yeah.
Okay. Yeah. Do you think that's had a big role in your life at home and your community life here?
Yeah, definitely growing up here. I guess being Muslim is like something different. I guess especially when we first moved here, we didn't know as many like Muslim people, and we weren't as familiar with like the Muslim communities in Minnesota. So yeah, definitely going to public school and university and everything. It's very yeah, it's different. Yeah.
Different.
Yeah.
So could you tell me what it was like for you, if you remember, or your family coming to the United States? Like what the process was like?
So I think so my family decided to move to Minnesota when I was about 3 years old. So when we came here, it was my parents kind of started out kind of like new again from the beginning.
Mm-hmm.
We had a teeny little apartment. Mm-hmm. And yeah, I think for my dad it was like really difficult just because like education didn't translate as well. Mm-hmm. So like my dad had studied like economics and stuff, and so he was a banker back in Morocco, but then he came here and he had to work like a menial job, I guess.
Yeah.
And my mom had gone to law school, but that didn't really count here anymore. So yeah.
It's super hard.
So that changed, yeah.
Do you still have relatives?
Yeah, I do have relatives in Morocco, yeah.
Do you keep in contact with them?
Yeah, definitely. Yes.
Okay. Do you go visit often?
Yeah, I've visited Morocco a few times. I'm actually going there in December as well, so I'm doing a volunteer women's education program there in Marrakesh.
Cool.
Yeah.
And is your family more traditional or relaxed with the Muslim culture and religion?
I feel like they're in between, because there's like different spectrums. There are like people who are just like Muslim but like you never know it, mm-hmm. and then people who are like just super Muslim, and then we're just like kind of in the middle. I guess we stay connected to that culture, and that religious aspect is important to us, and we like see that in because we're constantly involved in our Muslim community and stuff. So yeah, we're kind of in the middle. Like everyone just does their own thing.
Okay.
Yeah.
Cool.
All right, so we are interested in how culture influences family life. Can you start by telling us a little about your family and your relationship with them? Yeah. Like, where do they live, or are you close with your family?
Yeah, so, I've never moved out. So, yeah, I'm very close with my family. Yeah, we live in the same house, I guess. Yeah, so we have a very, like, close-knit relationship, I feel like, especially in, like, comparison to, like, other college students who, like, move out, they kind of get further away from their family and stuff. So for me, like, I'm constantly involved with like my siblings and my parents and stuff. So yeah.
Cool. Are gender roles present in your family? And if so, how are they organized?
In terms of gender roles, I would say there's always that like cultural like influence, like the Moroccan cultural influence, but then I feel like in my family, like our American culture and our Moroccan culture kind of has like merged. So it's like very, I guess it's very like different. There isn't like, so I feel like from a traditional sense, there is like the, I guess like being like Muslim women, the expectation of like covering or like dressing a certain way. So I guess in terms of gender roles, I would think of that, I guess, being present. But in terms of other things, I feel like it's very, anyone can do whatever they want outside of that. Yeah.
Are the gender roles in your family today different than they were for your parents or grandparents when they lived in Morocco?
I think so, yeah, a little bit. I guess that in terms of there in Morocco, there's like this like very like strict etiquette kind of thing for like men and women. So there's a specific way that women and men act, I think, and that's kind of enforced, and I really see that a lot, I guess, in my home because that's just a strong influence for us. So yeah.
Is there ever conflict in your home about gender roles?
I think, well, I feel like not as much anymore. I feel like when I was younger, it was like there was more of like a mention of it, and now it's just like my parents know that we're just gonna do what we want.
Yeah.
Right.
Okay. What rules did your family have growing up, such as about school or dating? And were these rules different for boys than for girls? I feel like, sorry, there's a lot of gender roles.
Oh, no, it's okay. That's okay. No, that's really important. So I guess for dating, you said?
Yeah.
Okay. So I think, well, yeah. So with all my siblings, I feel like my parents have always just been like, no dating till like you're at least 18.
Okay.
Or something like that. And even in terms of dating, they think of it in the traditional sense, I guess. There's like in like the Islamic culture, there's this expectation that you go into a relationship with the end goal of getting married. So there isn't there's an expectation that you're not like fooling around or like having premarital sex and things like that. So that's like been the rule, I guess. Then the main theme in my home, and like the expectation for both men and women.
Okay.
I feel like if you look at a lot of Arab like families, they don't enforce it on the boys as much, but I feel like with my parents they're very different, where they like treat us all like the same.
Okay.
So yeah.
What values did your family teach you growing up?
I guess in terms of values, I guess the values have always come back to kind of like religion and education and like self-respect and things like that. So education has been like a really big one in like my family, just because a lot of like people in my family from Morocco are like really like well educated and stuff. So there's always this expectation that we're gonna like do well in school and focus and like reach to be like the best that we can be and stuff, and like minimize distractions and stuff. And in terms of religion, there's always been kind of they've always kind of for a while they didn't, but like more recently I feel like my parents have like what is it? They've I'm losing my words. I left them in the GRE this morning. Yeah.
I'm so sorry.
No, it's okay. More recently they've kind of emphasized the importance of kind of like religion like in our lives, and in terms of just kind of like how we interact with people, the decisions we make. I guess like prayer has always been really important in my family, and staying connected with like good people and making good like friendships and like things like that, like honesty, dependability, things like that have always been like really important values. Yeah.
Okay. Cool. Are there specific things about your culture you want to keep or pass down to your children?
I think so, yeah. I feel like for me, like being a Muslim and like the values that come with like Islam and stuff are very important to me. So I always feel like I want to pass that down to my kids, and I want them to have a strong connection to their faith and their community as well as like education. I feel like a lot of the values my parents have given me, like I feel are really important. There are like tweaks I would make in terms of like their expectations in terms of like gender roles and stuff like that, but I feel like still the essence of like the faith and the culture that are really important to me. So yeah.
Okay. Just a couple more questions. Could you define or describe the most important or most celebrated holiday in your culture?
Eid. So yeah, there are two Eids during the year, Eid al-Fitr and Eid al-Adha. And Eid al-Fitr is one of the Eids. It's the Eids that Eid is like a 3-day celebration, I guess. So And so essentially Eid al-Fitr is the Eid that comes after Ramadan, the month of Ramadan, which is like the month of fasting. And so that one's kind of like a celebration of like being alive and having like all the I guess like things that we have and we've been granted, and like being thankful and things like that. And so yeah, and most of our Eids are characterized by lots of food and dressing up and music and stuff. And there are 2 of them during the year, and so those are the 2 biggest, I think.
Awesome. What would you say is, from your perspective, the most commonly held misconception about your culture?
I guess like I feel like a big misconception is like there's always like whenever you hear people speaking negatively about Muslim culture, there's always like this exaggeration of like oppression against women and things like that, and the exaggeration of like what gender roles look like in Islamic culture. And I feel like that's the biggest one, because I feel like when I look at it, I feel like gender roles are like present in like all cultures regardless of religion, and I feel like it's really no different, I guess, if you look at gender roles in Islamic culture versus gender roles in Christian or Jewish culture. So I feel like it's very similar. So yeah.
Okay. Do you eat any foods that are indigenous to your culture?
Yeah.
Okay. What
So Moroccan culture, people eat a lot of what we call tagine.
Okay.
And tagine is kind of like a meat dish. It could be with like lamb or beef or chicken, and it often has like vegetables and stuff like that. And then another really big one is like couscous. And couscous is like, you guys have probably had it before, but yeah, it's like a thick semolina. And it's kind of, and you make it like with like vegetables and like a soup and like lamb often, and sometimes chicken. So yeah, that's really popular.
If you are from a culture that speaks English as a second language, do you speak your native language, which you said, right?
Yeah.
And so, will you teach your children your native language and English?
Yeah, probably. Yeah, I think that's important to me. I mean, for me, like, I like know my native language and stuff. I'm not very strong in it, but I have like taken time to like learn it, I guess.
Okay.
And I've also, so the thing with Arabic is there are a lot of dialects, so I can speak the dialect, not like super proficiently, but I can speak it. And then I also studied like what was it called? Yeah. Not Darija, sorry. Darija is my dialect.
Okay.
But Fusha Arabic.
Okay.
So I've also studied Fusha Arabic, so I'm pretty familiar with that. But in terms of like reading and writing, but yeah, it's something I want to pass on to like my kids.
For sure. Okay, and then just one more. What is considered most disrespectful in your culture?
In my culture, there's a really big emphasis on maintaining ties especially between families. So, if you don't like keep in contact with like your grandparents or your uncles or your aunts or someone, they feel really slighted. And another thing is like even if you live in the same house, if you don't like in the morning, if you don't like say hello and like ask how someone's doing or like give them a kiss or something, that's also considered like you're ignoring them. So that's very considered, yeah.
All right, well, cool. That is all of our questions. We would like to thank you for coming in and taking your time.